Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I am Allie Ellery, coming at you from Pensacola, Florida. Joining me as always on beautiful, I almost said it, beautiful Boise, Idaho. It almost happened. Beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. We've got Dustin. Dustin, how you living?
You know what? I was thinking mentally in my head, how long is it going to take her to get the Ullery right, which she did, like you were. And
Pensacola and Cleveland. I've got three new things.
Yeah, but it was funny. Like I was like, okay, she got Ullery, and then her to go, but. So Allie, it's a balmy 20 degrees, 22 degrees in Cleveland, Ohio. Snow off and on all 3 days. More importantly, we are the toast of ESPN tonight. As you know, the Cleveland Cavaliers are taking on the best of the West, and the Oklahoma City team is in town. Some think this could be a finals matchup or, something to that effect. But big game in Cleveland tonight. We'll update people throughout the show with the score update because obviously people are going to be tuning into that as well because that's a big game here in the city of Cleveland, which delayed my time getting back downtown, by the way. Getting off the freeway right there at Jacobs Field and like that, I've learned a little trick. You go a half mile more, get off at Carnegie, and you avoid all of that backup of all that traffic. Tricks you learn getting into downtown is like, everybody, there are more than 2 exits, just so you know. But you can get into downtown other ways. But we have got a lot, Allie, to talk about tonight. I mean, the Cleveland Browns are never not giving us enough, material. So there's a lot to talk about. Got some college football games coming up. We got some playoff games. But Allie, take it away.
First and foremost, just want to apologize. I know I sound a little funny tonight. I'm a little under the weather, so bear with me. I'll do my best to mute myself if I have a coughing attack. But I'm getting through it. It's just that time of year. Every year, first of the year, I'm sick. It's just.
Well, I've had like oh my god, it's brutal. Here, just tight as
just
here it's the dry air for me. The dry air is like just the wind is just.
Yeah. All right. We do have a pretty full show for you tonight. You're right, Dustin. The Cleveland Browns do one thing, and they make our lives easy in the sense that it gives us a lot to talk about on this show week in and week out, even when their season is over. We're going to get into that. Before we do so, I want to talk to you about our friends over at 5 Iron Golf. Guys, this is where golf is inclusive for everybody. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned vet, you can hit some practice shots, get out of the cold, get out of the snow, go golfing, get some food, get some drinks, do all of it. Also, want to tell you about our friends over at Stadium Mustard. If you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste, beloved from ballparks to backyards, and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. By the way, it's loved by millions, so be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. But before we start talking about the Cleveland Browns, I want to talk about this Cleveland Cavaliers team, Dustin. I want to read a couple of things to you. This matchup tonight, the Oklahoma City Thunder versus your Cleveland Cavaliers, a couple of points that are very, very interesting. Never before has a team on a 15-game win streak and a team on a 10-game win streak met in an NBA game. That is happening tonight with these two teams.
So history. Okay.
Yeah. Also, the Thunder and the Cavs have not lost a regular season game in a month. Plus, OKC's last loss came on December 1st, while Cleveland's was December 8th. This game marks the third time ever that teams with a combined 8.850 win percentage have met this late in the season, and the first time ever in an East and West matchup. So, since the Eastern and Western conferences were formed in 1970, this is the first time that two teams have matched up with each other while being 10-0 or better against the opposing conference.
So it's a battle. I mean, it's a.
Oh yeah, this is absolutely a battle. Only two teams in NBA history have won 70-plus games. We all already know the 2015-16 Warriors and the 95-96 Bulls. Both the Thunder with 70 wins, the Cavs both the Thunder and the Cavs are on pace to reach 70 wins this season. Like, that's crazy.
Well, you think about it. I mean, the season's 80 games, right? Something like that, 80-some games or whatever it is. So if you think about it, at 35 and whatever, the Cavs are basically the halfway point in the season. And so to think that you're halfway and have that many wins stacked up, there were some sports folks in town here talking about that. It would almost like take 3 of the guys for the Cavs to start slumping, if that makes sense, because our bench has been so creative in this run. Our players have not gotten worn out because the coach has been so good about rotating the players and making sure that, they just aren't worn out at the end of the night. They were like, you'd have to have 3 of these guys just basically just fall off the, to not keep that sustainability. So it's really interesting what this coach has done and how he's been able to use the backside of the bench for this team and be so creative. And to me, this Cavs team versus last year's team is just more, Donovan Mitchell's I'm not saying he had to take a step back, but he's able to take 5 or 6 less points a night and let the other role players step up, and they have in a big way. And it's been more of a complementary team game versus one individual like Donovan Mitchell having to carry the load every night and get 40 points or 35, whatever that may be.
So a point of optimism, if you will. The Cavs are the 8th team in NBA history to start a season 31-4 or better, with 4 of the previous 7 going on to win the NBA Finals. So that's pretty optimistic. Man, it's just what a team. For as down that of a season that this Browns team had, and we look at the Guardians this past year, the Cavs currently this year. Man, if only the Browns could get their act together to make it. Wow, Cleveland is a great time to be a Cleveland sports fan, but it still is nonetheless. Let's talk about your Cleveland Browns. Obviously, we've all seen the news since we last met last week. We know that the Browns have fired Ken Dorsey. They fired their previous offensive line coach, but they have brought in, as of today, Mike Bloomgren as their offensive line coach. So let's go through his resume, and I think this will make you start feeling pretty optimistic about this hire. One, he comes from the Callahan coaching tree. Most recently, before taking on this position as the Browns offensive line coach, he was the head coach at Rice from 2018 to 2024. Prior to that, let's start at as a GA in '99. He was at Alabama. Then he moved on to Delta State as their offensive coordinator. Then he was with the Jets for quite a while, actually. Spent some time in the league, then went to Stanford as a run game coordinator, and then was the head coach at Rice, and now the Cleveland Browns offensive line coach. I think this is a really good hire and fits well with who the Browns want to be, who we think they want their identity to be. Kind of a consistent run first option kind of team. I think that this fits well. What are your thoughts on this hire?
So my first, because he has a, for not being that old of a person, he has a pretty long tenured as a coach, right? And head coaching in college. He's been at big programs. My question was, when I looked at this, is this a rising star in the National Football League? Is this a guy that is looking to be an offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, and then maybe someday a head coach in the National Football League? It just seems like he has that pedigree when you look at his resume, that he was ready to take that leap from college and come back into the NFL, and do some great things at the NFL level. That's kind of what was my first blush as I looked through his resume today. And I was like, it seems like this is a guy that could be a hot candidate come, 3 to 5 years down the road. It just kind of looks like that. And I know a lot of people at first glance go to Twitter and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Cleveland Browns hired such a coach. And then I'm like, well, look at his resume. It's like, it's very, of course, nobody looks at his resume. They just say, oh my gosh, they hired a guy in 3 seconds. Well, clearly Stefanski had somebody in mind. He had obviously been doing his homework prior to firing, these guys, which you should do, right? You should have your heir apparent ready if you're letting somebody go, right? That's, nobody does that even in the real world. You don't fire somebody. It's like, oh, what are we going to do now, right? So I like the hire. And like I said, I just feel like he could be a rising star based on just everywhere he's been. He's been a head coach. He's been an offensive coordinator. That Stanford team was really good when he was there. I think they went to some big bowl games. And Stanford was really good back then before they kind of had their decline now. But yeah, I think it's a B plus, A minus higher if I'm giving it a grade. Because I mean,
Well,
obviously we don't.
I think it's hard to give it a grade yet, but I
Right.
agree with you. If we're looking at this just from an experience standpoint and like knowing what the Browns want to do going forward or who they aspire to be, I think this definitely fits. So I agree with that. But I mentioned he worked with Bill Callahan. He comes from the Bill Callahan coaching tree, if you will. And I know as Browns fans, we say the name Bill Callahan. Everybody gets excited because he was our guy. He was awesome. The Browns offensive line was great when he was here. We really liked him as the person, as the coach. So just to talk about that a little bit, when he was with the New York Jets, he served in that position under Brian Schottenheimer and Bill Callahan. And then in 2009, when Rex Ryan became the head coach of the New York Jets, Bloomgren accepted a position as the assistant offensive coordinator, excuse me. So experience. I mean, Dustin, he's 47, but his resume started in 99. So he's been
Well,
doing this for quite some time.
Yeah, look how far he's been for only 47
Mhm.
years old. Like, I mean, he's done a lot in his career. You know, I mean, he's been a lot of places and done a lot of things. So that's why I'm saying he's at that age now where I feel like maybe he wants to, you know, make that next level to offensive coordinator and head coach.
Sure.
I kind of feel like that's where his trajectory is heading based on this hire.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Moving on, since we last spoke, we know that the Browns have fired Ken Dorsey. Does that come as any surprise to you, Dustin?
That was definitely on my bingo card in week 6. No, no. And I joked I was watching them as much as I could bear to watch the Ravens game. Some of my favorite outtakes are Dorsey in the offensive coordinator booth. Like, it's funny. Like, we all know about his meltdown he had when he was with the Bills and he threw the headset and all that. But I just remember when Zappy threw the ball an interception, he goes like this. He just, like, his head goes all the way down, and I'm like, yeah, you're done. Like, you can't. I mean, but here's the thing, and I don't. I was listening to Andrew Berry's press availability, and he asked a question about the John Dorsey firing, and he was very poignant and said, "That is Kevin Stefanski's move. You need to talk to him about that." Like, it was interesting that he really put that onus on Kevin Stefanski, that he made that hire and that fire. You know what I mean? And so he got rid of him. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So, I mean, you have the 27th ranked offense, or whatever the hell it was, 28th. It's deplorable, right? Like, it's not gonna cut it. I think we're gonna have. I mean, Browns fans probably do not want to hear this, but I think we're going to come back to Kevin Stefanski hybrid offensive coordinator again, and you'll have maybe an offensive coordinator in name only. I just feel like if we bring like a Cousins in or something like that, Stefanski doesn't need an offensive coordinator, right? Like, Cousins can run this offense, right? Like, I guess it all depends on who the quarterback is that comes under this offense, and that's going to be a big conversation between now and March 1st in the draft. But I think that will be a more tell to what happens with the offensive coordinator's position going forward. So no, it was not a surprise to me at all. Honestly, I was maybe a little surprised that there wasn't some more, and there could still be, I suppose, but some more shifts and changes in position coaches.
I was going to ask you about that. That was actually going to be my next question. Are you surprised that anybody else retained their position? And of course, we know that this can happen at any time. You know, at this point in the postseason, in the off season,
Right.
like anything can happen here. But were you surprised that the offensive line coach and offensive coordinator were the only two out on that day?
Yes, I was. Like, I was like, okay, you know, there's some other. I mean, obviously, Schwartz. I mean, I was not gonna. I would be shocked.
Sure.
That would not have been on my bingo card if someone like Schwartz was let go because of how well he was able to endure with this horrible offense. So yeah, I think there could have been some other positions, because sometimes you almost want to make a move and look at those positions and see if they regress or progress, right? And maybe even give Schwartz a little leeway and say, hey, coach, you want to make some fundamental changes on defense, and, you know, the linebacker, you know, cornerbacks. Like, I don't know what those internal conversations look like, but, you know, I just think sometimes you have to do that to kind of keep some accountability in that area, I guess, in the end of the day, because, and Andrew Berry brought up a good point. We're embarrassed by our record. He goes, "I'm embarrassed," and I think there was some good accountability. What he said, "I'm embarrassed by our record." So, are you embarrassed with some of your positions? Did they regress, based on that position? And if they did, maybe that guy's got to go, and you got to bring in maybe even a younger or more intense guy that can get these guys riding the ship. But that's so long story short, yes, I'm surprised it wasn't.
I agree with that. I was surprised that most of the offensive staff stayed in place. I think that I was just surprised that I expected Stefanski to stay. I did. I was just
Everybody
surprised that
did.
the rest of the offensive minds in that room also stayed. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Opening up to the National Football League, as a broader view here, were you surprised by any of the firings in the NFL?
A little bit with the one in New England. I thought that was you win a game and they fire you. I don't know. It was interesting, but
Lovie Smith situation.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, there's rumors now that Vrabel may take that position, which would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think the McCarthy situation is kind of weird where the Bears are asking for permissions, but you're getting radio silence out of the owner and the Dallas Cowboys, and everybody said that's kind of weird. That's not normal, right? So I know his contract is up for renewal, so they can just release him, not technically fire him, and let him look for other positions. But
the Cowboys did deny permission for the Bears to interview McCarthy.
Finally, okay. I will tell you, it can't sit well with fans that walk the streets of New York City with the retention of the head coach, for the Giants and the GM. That one surprises me. That one surprises me more in this fact that they retained them more than anything in that situation.
Yeah, I guess. The Raiders got rid of Antonio Pierce. We saw that. What would you say when you look at all of the coaching vacancies in the NFL? What is the most intriguing job? What's the most attractive job for, Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn even? Some of these names that are listed as some of the hot candidates to take over a team. What would you say is the most attractive position for an aspiring head coach?
This is going to sound weird, which I think is the most you can maybe turn it around.
Yeah,
is the Raiders. With Tom Brady now there's rumors that Tom Brady has had a conversation with Bill Belichick to have him, renege on the $10 million clause and come coach the Raiders. I don't know how much smoke to fire there is there, but I feel like that's an organization that is a quarterback away, like a lot of teams are. They're not in a tear down in a lot of ways. And for a player, it's an attractive place to attract players to come play, right? Like it's nice dome. I think that one, there's some advantages there because the owner will spend money, right? I don't know. I just feel like that might be an attractive place. And the one that I think is, and quite honestly, the only one I think can be fixed by it is I think Rex Ryan can fix the Jets because he clearly shown that he was the only one that can fix the freaking Jets. So I think Rex Ryan makes sense there. He understands the culture. He understands, he's the last team, I believe, to take him to the playoffs. So yeah, but the Raiders is the one I think you can come in and with some tweaking, figure it out, right? There's some stuff that can be done there, but the Saints is not, that could be another one, but I wouldn't touch the Bears. I mean, the Bears, I don't know.
See, I disagree. I think not what I would want to do. Let me say that. But if you're a Ben Johnson and you're kind of you're an offensive guru, somebody that can take an offense to the promised land, I think you probably look at the Bears situation, what they have, especially offensively. You've got a young quarterback with a very high ceiling. You've got really good playmakers. You've got DJ Moore, you've got Keenan Allen, you've got a pretty decent running back situation. You've got some key pieces. Cole Kmet there. Obviously, you need some help. Otherwise, maybe beef up the offensive line, some help on the defense. But I mean, honestly, when you watch this Bears team and a lot of the games that they played this year, it was just coaching malpractice. It was time management, clock management, things like that. But if you look at this team and a young quarterback in Caleb Williams with a very high ceiling, you probably, I bet a lot of these up and coming coordinators, or excuse me, up and coming head coaches want to be able to be that guy that can turn the Bears around, that can turn the Jets around, that can turn the Browns around, right? I mean, Kevin Stefanski is two-time coach of the year because of what he was able to do in Cleveland with such adversity. I think you look at those situations and want to be able to do that, but you've got some of the elements there. But I mean, I agree. I'd want to go to Vegas, great facilities, and be in Vegas. That'd be a ton of fun. But I don't look at this. I don't look at the Jets and say, "Oh, that would be fun. That would be a good place to go." Especially with the Aaron Rodgers situation, that sounds awful. Just not something I'd want to touch. I think you probably look at like tradition, facilities, and like what's the quarterback situation. If you're an aspiring head coach, I don't know. I think it's fun to watch. It is.
Well, and that's
it's interesting.
And I guess that's where I was going. If you're a coach and you're coming in, you might have an opportunity to draft, like the Raiders have an opportunity to move up or draft a quarterback, where they're positioned in the draft is what I was thinking. Like they can go get their guy, right? Their guy that they can build around, and then they got some stuff there. Whereas Caleb, you're kind of stuck with him. That's who you picked. You're inheriting him, right? Like that's not your guy. So that was kind of where I was like, I don't know if I'd want that. Where, the Saints, we don't, there's some different things you can do there, right? So, I think it's fascinating right now that there's 6 head coaching jobs open, maybe 6, 7, something like that.
I believe there's around something like that. Yeah.
So there's talk that Gruden may be in the conversation. You have Vrabel out there. You got a handful of guys, and then you got this Bill Belichick thing that broke about a conversation that happened a month ago. So it's a little crazy, but I'm just picturing Bill Belichick, and I can't picture Bill Belichick in a Raiders hoodie.
Well, I can't picture Bill Belichick recruiting high school kids. Like, I just cannot picture this. This is crazy.
Well, he's dating a college gal, so I mean, he's not too far off.
Yeah, just what a time to be alive. Yeah, Bill Belichick at UNC. It's insane. We want to tell you about our friends over at True Fan Travel. They are all about bringing you closer to the heart-pounding action of your favorite away games. Whether you're cheering from the stands or soaking in the local vibes, they make sure that every trip is not just a game, it's an experience. So be sure to go check them out over at True Fan Travel. Dustin, before we go out and talk to David here, why don't you tell our listeners about Greater Cleveland Aquarium?
Yeah, guys, if you haven't been to Greater Cleveland Aquarium down here right next to the Cuyahoga River, the shark tank to all the different multiple displays there from species, not only from Northeast Ohio, but all over the world. It's a great place to take your children, grandchildren. If you have school trips, if you're a school teacher, or you have a nonprofit organization that you want to do, take them over there. And then, of course, right next door, you have the wonderful Lady Caroline. That's right, Lady Caroline, right out of there next to Greater Cleveland. Take wonderful ships right out of there. Dinner cruises, lunch cruises, special cruises. You can book it for your corporate events or do wonderful fun things. They'll be doing that again here in the spring. Buy those tickets now. Get excited and go out on Lake Erie because, man, I would love some warm weather out around this lake and turn it to sun. By the way, we're in the gray season, they call it here, Allie, where the sun doesn't come out for a while. By the way, Allie, I don't know if you know this, but David's going to sing happy birthday to you. Everybody, it's Allie's birthday yesterday, so we need to give her a wonderful birthday. You've made it been around the moon 3 times, I think. Does that sound about right? So
something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So big shout out to Allie and her birthday. By the way, Allie, before we bring David on, what did David do for your birthday? What'd you guys do? I know it was Tuesday night. Did you turn it out on a Tuesday? No,
we so he planned a fun trip. We went to Biloxi, Mississippi. We gambled out there, had a good time at the casino, had some great dinners, and then yesterday for my birthday, we went to the Naval Air Station Museum. I got to fly a jet. It was a simulator, which was really cool.
Those are
yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
Did you pass out? Did you pass out and do the whole?
Oh, we did some hard turns. I was a little nervous to go upside down, but we had a really good time. Got a massage and then had a great dinner. So it was a great birthday.
So you went and did. So you guys did your normal degenerate gambling and had fun, and I love it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's true. Yeah, we did. I had a great time. Had a great time. All right, let's bring him on. This interview is brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards.
Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Woof, woof.
Hello, welcome to Lorello Vineyards. Larry and Kim Lorello. We have a beautiful Here We Go Brownies wine that we would like to offer to you this season as we did last season. We have several other award-winning wines, lovely entertainment and events coming this summer. So come and see us, wine a bit, you'll feel better.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you at the Muni lot this fall. Go Browns.
All right, let's bring him on. The husband of the program, Dr. David Ellery. David, what's going on?
Hey, Allie. Hi, Dustin. Just a beautiful, chilly Wednesday evening in Pensacola. Dustin, when I woke up and left for work this morning, it was freezing. It was 29 degrees.
I do not want. Okay. I don't even want. I don't feel your pain because it was 21 degrees here with 25-mile-an-hour winds, which means it feels like -2. So
It's fair, but I mean, under 30 is pretty cold for even Pensacola.
It is.
No. Everybody said it's very cold in Florida, and I mean, like for them, I've heard that, but it's a balmy 16 in Canton Alley, for instance, right now, down where your parents live. So yeah, not beautiful by any means.
No, that's why I don't live there anymore. It's terrible. Didn't enjoy that. So David,
And with
I
that,
think
the Ohio Tourism Bureau would never be as small.
yeah. But talking about the Cleveland Browns, obviously, David, the biggest news that came out regarding Deshaun Watson, that he had a setback in his recovery. I figured that's going to be kind of the bulk of what we talk about tonight. I know so many people on socials are fired up about this, have some questions. I'll turn it over to you. Take it away. What's this mean?
Yeah. So initially, when I hear setback, there's like one of two things that I think of, especially in kind of the scope or the context of what um, Andrew Barry was saying, because they said that he has a setback that may or may not require more surgery. And in that sense, the two most common complications after an Achilles surgery would be either a re-rupture, where the tendon that was repaired retore somehow, or an infection. We know that these are prone to infection because the incision where the surgery is done it's very thin in terms of the tissue around it. It's literally skin, a little bit of subcutaneous soft tissue, and then the tendon. There's not a lot of fat or anything else or muscle around it to kind of protect it, and so they can be prone to infections as well. I got to read a little bit more, and it basically every player has an exit physical exam. And after the final game of the season, and Deshaun kind of told the docs, like, hey, like something doesn't feel right. And that kind of prompted them to investigate a little bit more. And so this is purely speculation. We don't actually know what this setback is. But I mean, Andrew Berry alluded to the fact that this could require a second surgery, essentially restarting that recovery timeline, meaning from the time he may have, if he needs another surgery, 9 months to go before he'd be ready to go, which would certainly rule out a pretty large portion of the 2025 season, if not all of it, because that would put us into October or November at the soonest if he had another surgery anytime soon. So, odds are it could have failed. The repair could have failed or retore, or there's an infection. But I feel like if there's an infection, we would have heard about that sooner and there'd be a little bit more urgency to it. But again, we really don't know anything beyond the fact that there is a setback that could require a second surgery. So certainly alarming for Deshaun and just for the recovery and for the team as a whole, and very interested to see what happens next.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah. So my question, you being the expert in your field, you see these, you repair these, you have surgery on these type of injuries all the time. In the body of work that you've been around, or estimates, what is the percentage, and you maybe don't even have a number, but say X amount of surgeries, a percentage of those end up having an infection, right? Like, or something like that. How many of those, percentage of those, I mean, because everything's, in your world, I know there's percentages, like when they say, hey, you have a 50-50 chance, but what of those, is there a chance of a re-rupture, like you were mentioning, because you felt like something didn't feel right? And what is the percentage of that an infection could come up in cases like this in your field?
Yeah, good question. So ultimately, like when I'm counseling patients on surgery, I tell them for the majority of surgeries, the infection risk is roughly 1 to 2%. It's pretty small. I would say it's probably slightly higher for this, just depending on how big the incision they made is, because like I talked about earlier, there's not a lot of soft tissue, muscle, fat protecting this incision, and the incision is usually under tension, and so
Right.
it's a little bit more prone to healing issues, complications, drainage, things like that. In terms of re-rupture, after a surgically repaired Achilles tendon, the re-rupture rate, I checked on this beforehand just to kind of refresh my memory. It's as low as 2% in some studies, and so it's
Interesting.
not very common for these to re-rupture. It's a really good surgery, and we have a really good protocol for it afterwards. And so it'd be quite rare for this to happen, especially for an NFL athlete. But I mean, it still does happen. And so I'm very curious to see if we ever find out what the actual setback was.
Right.
So, in the event, let's just say that it is a re-rupture. How urgent is it to have surgery, from that
Mm.
time of re-rupture? Like, how quickly do you typically want to get that done?
Oh, can you?
Yeah. I mean, Uh, honestly, fairly quickly. I mean, as quickly as you would get to it after the initial injury, truthfully. And I mean, with an Achilles rupture, at the very latest for an acute repair and the best outcome, you want to get to it within 2 to 3 weeks, and even sooner. I mean, for most people, for especially for an NFL athlete, I mean, they're getting into it almost within a week if surgery is what's needed. And so, similarly, like we should have an answer pretty soon if he's going to need surgery or not. Now, obviously, like it's going to require a little bit more in terms of diagnosis, another MRI, possibly ultrasound, and maybe multiple opinions. But if it is something that the German is going to need surgery, they would probably act pretty quickly, just in the best interest of both him from a recovery standpoint and from a tissue healing standpoint. Because the longer you let something torn sit, the harder it is to get it back in place because the
Mhm.
tissue retracts, it scars in, and it requires a little bit more work and a little bit more aggression or aggressiveness to get it back in place. And so, the other concern, if it is a re-rupture, is how good is that tissue going to be to repair it a second time? Um, from time to time with re-injuries on certain things, the tissue degrades in quality time, and if there's multiple surgeries, and then sometimes you're looking at possibly needing a graft. Now, I'm not saying that's his situation; that's what he might need. Um, but I mean, this isn't. You have to be very careful with these types of injuries because that tissue is kind of low or poor in blood supply to begin with, which is why it's prone to tearing, and so it already has a tendency to be poorer in quality, and so any sort of revision scenario is even a little bit more challenging. And so, like I said, this isn't great news, no matter what it is.
Mhm.
Whenever someone says possible second surgery for an already surgically repaired Achilles tendon, so I'm really curious to see what's going to come of this.
George has a question here. How many come back from them? I mean, coming back from one torn Achilles is probably difficult in and of itself, but if you do it twice within a certain amount of time, does that make it even more difficult to come back, I would imagine?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it is just because you're already set back. How many months since the initial injury? I mean, it's been what, um, I forget when his initial surgery was, but having a second one was even harder. And so, just kind of looking for an actual like data to answer that question in terms of return to play rate. For an Achilles tendon repair, the return to play rate for the NFL is quoted anywhere from 60 to 75%. We've looked at studies surrounding injuries before, and we do note that the position definitely makes a difference in terms of players' return to play rate, but on average, 60 to 75% of players return to play in the NFL after sustaining an Achilles rupture and then having it surgically repaired. So you can imagine that that number goes down if there's multiple surgeries needed or if there's a revision. I don't know if that data is even available, if it's been studied. Um, but uh, if it's 60 to 75% for a primary injury and a primary repair, a revision repair, it's definitely going to drop below that, probably closer to 50%, honestly.
Okay, interesting. Another
So,
another question here
mhm.
from George about using stem cells in the future repair of these.
Um, there may be some use of that in the the private or outside world for repairing these. Certainly, I know that PRP is pretty heavily used for um, instances like this, whether it's at the time of surgery or before or after surgery. People use PRP injections with ACLs, with biceps tendons, certainly with Achilles as well. And PRP is kind of one step below stem cells because it's your own tissue, it's your own blood. Essentially, PRP or platelet-rich plasma is a portion of your blood that's spun down, and it's a concentrated segment of just platelets that have healing factors and healing proteins that kind of enable the body to kind of focus on healing in a certain area when they're injected into that area. So I know PRP is definitely used at time of surgery for things like this. And there may be some scenarios or worlds where stem cells are also. It's certainly not a part of my practice, but there's definitely studies looking at that.
So, David, you bring up a good point. Like, if this, like you said, probably sounds like based on when Andrew Berry made his press availability, 7 to 10 days max, that he would probably go in for another surgery if it's probably needed after a few days of looking at MRIs and all those types of things. We always hear this. Like, I mean, if we're just being truthful to Browns fans here, in the best case scenario, like you said, he would even be back this year, but we know this is an injury that takes 2 years to recover fully, to be back to somewhat of normal, like for like full capacity for an athlete. So, I mean, it begs the question. I mean, does he risk never playing another down in the National Football League because of this injury? I mean, I think that there could be that stark reality. And I know even Kirk Cousins was, he's dealt with his issues with his, and he's finally somewhat back. But I'm just curious what your thought on that is. What are the positions that, because of this and the sensitivity and of the complexity of the injury, that he may not play again, unfortunately?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly hard to predict. I mean, we definitely have recent examples of players having this injury and returning at multiple positions. I mean, like you already said, Kirk Cousins, he had his surgery on November 1st of 2023, and he came back for the beginning of this season. So there's evidence to support that, quarterbacks especially can return. I mean, and also Aaron Rodgers, obviously his was a little bit sooner in the season in September of 2023. But either way, both of those guys made it back and played a full season. It's pretty easy to argue that they weren't good seasons for either of them, especially with Kurt getting benched before the end of it. And so is that a matter of the Achilles injury, or is that just a matter of their time in the NFL is done because they're not the players they used to be from a skill standpoint? I don't know. I don't know which it is, but certainly they were out there they're mobile. They were able to move around in the pocket and throw the ball. And so it wasn't necessarily preventing them from playing, but it wasn't helping them maybe in certain aspects of it. So for Deshaun, I mean, we know he's had a number of injuries now over the past 2 years that have really impacted his ability to even just get any reps and playing time. So the Achilles injury alone, like I said, likely would not be um, a great reason, or it wouldn't be a huge reason for him to not see another snap. But I think when you consider everything that's gone into this from the time he's been at Cleveland Brown, even with all his injuries, it's not unreasonable to consider the fact that he may not play another snap. But I mean, at least everything we're hearing so far is he still wants to, and his goal is to do that. But yeah, possibly needing a second surgery will definitely set him back and potentially increase that risk of not seeing another snap in the NFL.
And
Um,
I just had a really
no, go
quick
ahead.
follow-up question. So with that, like someone like Kirk Cousins or Deshaun Watson under center, cleared to go, what is the percentages of somebody re-rupturing one? Like once and I know once you've had an injury, it's always higher, but what does it normally look like? What the risk when somebody goes back out there, re-tearing possibly that same, or injuring that same place?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know numbers for that question specifically for someone who's like returned to play and what are the chances of re-tearing it. I mean, like
Or
I
in
said,
your
overall,
field, or just normal day life for
yeah,
somebody,
I mean,
right?
overall, globally, the re-tear rate for Achilles after surgical repair, just in the general population, is 2%. So I imagine it's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
higher in athletes just because you're stressing it more. So maybe
Right.
closer to 5%. But I mean, they're good surgeries, they're good repairs, and they heal well. And so that's why players are able to get back to it. I mean, look at the season that like J.K. Dobbins had, and just other players who, after having Achilles, can get back to it. And so it's definitely probably higher than 2%, just because these are a little bit more aggressive players and like activities, but it's definitely higher than the opposite side. I'll say that.
Yeah. What about Mike Hall?
Yeah. So real quick, touching on Mike Hall. He was carted off the field Saturday. He had a knee injury, put in an air cast and carted off. And so I believe it's the same knee that was injured early in the season when he injured his MCL and went in the IR for 4 weeks. And so no details in terms of what the injury was, but we do know that it is a multi-month injury, or possibly requiring surgery. And so for a knee, something that's multi-month, but anticipated to be ready for the start of the 2025 season, best guess is probably like a meniscus injury. Those are usually something that, can get back to work or get back to something within 6 months. We're looking at, right now, 8 months from now, we're back into the season. And so if they're saying it's something that even with surgery, he'd be ready to go for 2025, it's likely some sort of meniscal injury, or it could be MCL. And an MCL reconstruction, you can get back in time for that too. And he may have just retore it or tore it worse than the initial injury. But either way, it sounds like they're optimistic he'll be ready to go, surgery or not. And those are probably my two best guesses for what the injury may be.
Okay, got it. Well, cool. Thanks, David. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on, as always.
Of course. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
All right, that is Dr. David Ellery. That's a medical moment brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. Dustin, before we move on, why don't you tell our listeners about Legacy Integrated?
Yeah, guys, with the new year here, some of you may be looking to make changes to financial goals. Is generating passive income a key area you want to focus on? One of our sponsors, Legacy Integrated, assists individuals with hands-off, diversified investment options that target generative passive income. Email our friend Brian at thelegacyintegrated.com with an email subject line of passive income to schedule a free introductory call. Think about it. No trash, no toilets, no tenants. Their focus is hands-off, passive, and they will help you get diversified across private debt, private equity, and private real estate to help you invest.
There you go. All right, Dustin, I have a question for you. Just as, this regular season is done, who is your 2024 NFL MVP? For the whole league, of course. Like, who, in your opinion, who's winning this award? Josh Allen?
Josh Allen. For me personally.
Yeah. I think this is really, really tough. I think Lamar Jackson has a really good argument. Both of these two guys, I think it's pretty close. Josh Allen, he's got 3,731 yards on the season, 28 touchdowns rather, to 6 interceptions, which is pretty darn good. He's got a 77.2 QBR. Now Lamar, he's got 4,172 yards, 41 touchdowns to 4 interceptions with a 77.5 QBR, which is first in the league.
Yeah, and he's statistically having his best career of his life, right?
Yeah. But personally, I think I would give it to Lamar. I think, not to give the Ravens credit here, I don't want to do that, but I think they've really unlocked something with Lamar Jackson. I know coming into the league in 2018, I was skeptical on Lamar. I wasn't sure if he was going to pan out, if he was going to be able to develop as a passer. But what we've seen them do this season, I think the addition of Derrick Henry has just elevated his game. To me, I think Lamar Jackson wins. This will be his third MVP. He's got over 4,000 yards, 41 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. That's what's just crazy to me. 41 touchdowns, which is tied for second in the league, and 4 interceptions. That's remarkable.
And for me, and the reason I chose Josh Allen is because of Derrick Henry. Because when you think of the most valuable player, I think, okay, why is he the most valuable player? Well, to your point, Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback and is complemented by Derrick Henry's great offensive, the year that Derrick Henry's had, right? It's been amazing. So Josh Allen has had to do a lot more for his team, and that's why I think he is the most valuable in that position, because of what he's had to do as a physical player for his entire team versus, Lamar was able to rely on some other people, where someone like, Buffalo doesn't have the run game, obviously, that the Ravens do, right?
Yeah.
So he has kind of had to be that guy that's had to propel himself above and beyond what he's normally had to do.
As we look at this playoff picture, who do you think wins it all? Like, in all actuality, I know Detroit's hot right now. That was a fun game against the Vikings. We know the Ravens, what they've got going on. We know Buffalo is such a contender, but we know Kansas City, they just do what they do. They've got like magic on their side. Like, realistically speaking here, who do you think wins it this year?
Well, I mean, at first blush, I would say Kansas City, right? But
Yeah.
no team has ever three-peated, and I think there's some reasons for that. It's tough, right? And I do think Buffalo somewhat has a little bit of the Chiefs' number. And there was some talk that the Bengals, if they got in the playoffs, could give the Chiefs some trouble, but from a matchup perspective. So I do like the Chiefs, but I really do think there is an opportunity here where the Bills can make a run here. And maybe the Chiefs get upset in the divisional round, because I think if I believe it or not, the Bills would have to meet the Chiefs in the AFC Championship if that's the way the bracket works out. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it would be. But Lions, they really needed that win against the Vikings because that gives them home field advantage, and better than 50% of the team has a first round bye and is the one seed, gets to the Super Bowl. I don't want to be the last team standing that's never been to a Super Bowl from the old era of NFL teams, but I did like the matchup. I don't know what to think of the Vikings, because they came in and then they kind of laid a dud at Detroit, and I was really looking for a competitive game there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go Bills on the AFC side, and I think Detroit from the other side, because I think there's a lot of good teams and there's not that many in the NFC, if that makes sense. Like, there's some power, some heavy hitters in the top. Yeah, I'm gonna go the Lions for it all, to be quite honest. I think the Lions could take it all this year. This could be the year that they have enough to beat a team like the Chiefs. Like, they just have enough firepower to come back at it. But
so I guess that's the thing. I would say that the Lions are the best team right now, but the Chiefs know how to win, and I think that's so scary once you get to the postseason. This is still new for the Lions, and that gives me some pause there with me confidently saying that they're going to win it all. Let me throw this at you. There's a theory going around socials right now, which is crazy, but the theory is that this isn't a theory, like, this is fact, but for this year, anyways, the tweet is, everybody knows that the Ravens win the Super Bowl every 12 years by scoring 34 points with a 28-year-old quarterback. In 2001, they won 34-7 with Trent Dilfer. He was 28 years old. In 2013, they won 34-31 with Joe Flacco. He was 28 years old. This year, it's 12 years later, and Lamar Jackson is 28 years old. So that's the theory going around right now, that the Ravens are going to win it all. I don't think so. I think.
But they have the run game. That's the dangerous thing.
They do. And how do you stop it? If you put them, honestly, if you put the Ravens right here, right now, up against this Detroit Lions team, I hate to say it, but I would take the Ravens in that, just in the sense that the Detroit Lions defense is decimated. They
would run it down your throat. Right.
They would find a way to do it. I mean, Lamar is such a threat as a passer and a runner, and then obviously with Derrick Henry, I don't know. I would have to give the nod there to the Ravens right now in that matchup.
As crazy as this sounds, and maybe this isn't a crazy take, but if I had to rank teams like in the NFL or the AFC, I almost think it's like the Bills 1A, 1B, and then the Chiefs. I actually think the Bills and the Ravens can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. I honestly feel that way. Like they are kind of those 1A, 1B teams. And what I mean by that is because the Bills can beat you in different ways, right? The Ravens can beat you in different ways. And I think if I'm the Ravens and I have to play the Chiefs, I just run it down your throat till you – and then, oh, by the way, if you stop me, I've got Lamar Jackson back here that's elusive and can bust one for 12, 15 yards downfield and do it with his own legs. Like, it's a two-headed monster. So, yeah, it's really dangerous. I just don't think the Chiefs have as much, if that makes sense. Like they just don't like. Kelsey's a great player, but he's not Kelsey of 3 or 5 years ago, right? Like Father Time catches up with everybody, right? So at some point, Kelsey's going to say, like, I'm hurting on Monday and Tuesday, and I don't feel good until Wednesday or Thursday. Like my body's getting beat up, right? Like at some point, Father Time catches up. Now it's not going to catch up with Patrick Mahomes for, unfortunately, another 10 years. So, but you got to have playmakers, right? One guy can't do it all, right? And to your point, Allie, you brought up a great point in the fact that Lamar was great, but then you added Derrick Henry to him, and it made him a better quarterback, right? Like it wasn't all on Lamar Jackson now.
Right.
They don't really have someone like can just run down your throat like that and go into beast mode. So yeah, and then Josh Allen, as big as he is, he can do the same thing, right? He can take a punch and go run 6 yards for the touchdown. He's not afraid to go in. So yeah, I think their record's fool's gold a little bit for the Chiefs, I guess. They have a great record, but I think they can be knocked out. I do.
Yeah. So George puts an interesting comment here. Who are you scared of wide receiver wise on all teams? So let's go through this real quick because I think this is interesting. The teams that scare me the most, I think, well, not scare me because like the Browns aren't in it, but the teams that I think have a true shot at winning it all, I don't think have the best wide receiver situation. I think the Lions have a pretty good receiving situation with Amon-Ra and J-Mo. It's fine. I mean, it's no Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type of situation. Kansas City, no. Yeah, they have DeAndre Hopkins, who he has got a ton of experience. They've got Xavier Worthy, who's effective, on sweeps, things like that, but not in that same category. And then even the Ravens, they don't have a pass catcher that scares me outside of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely probably. And then same with the Bills. You've got some young guys, but like there's not a number one threat that really, really scares me.
Well,
with those teams anyways.
Well, I think Amari Cooper could be that X factor, right? The veteran leader in the playoffs that can make those catches. I feel like Amari Cooper could be that guy. Like the calming on the field, right? Like, hey, Josh, throw it to me. I'll be open. I don't miss catches, right? And those are the kind of guys you want in the playoffs, right? Like, I mean, that's just the kind of guys you want, right? That have been there, they're tested, So, yeah, it'll be crazy.
I think when we look at these matchups, the Vikings Rams have the best receiving situation. The Vikings, obviously, with Justin Jefferson. The Rams with Puka, with Cooper Kupp. Commanders Bucks is interesting too with Mike Evans. We all saw what happened last week. That was pretty cool. Commanders have Terry. I think the Eagles have a pretty good receiving core. Outside of that, the other teams I think are fine. They're good enough to get the job done. Let's go through these. We've got to pick our game before we do. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Quick question for you. Speaking of high prolific wide receivers, what's your take on Tyreek Hill saying? like literally in an interview, he's like, "I'm done." Like, and everybody's like, "Wait, are you done with the Dolphins?" And he's like, and he walks off. Like, I'm like,
I know that was crazy. That was insane. Wide receivers are funny. I mean, it's like once a year where you have a receiver that just does something crazy. What was funny to me in that in his press or when he was talking to the media, they asked him something and he was like, yeah, I just have to do what's best for my family. And like, he could have just left it at that, but he kept talking and that's where it got worse. He just kept talking. And he was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm out. I'm done. And it's like, you didn't have to do that. Nobody asked you. You could have just shut it down. But I don't know. I think that's crazy.
That's where you went. Right.
That's where you went with it, man. Jason, he's the new Antonio Brown. It's true. You saw his profile picture on Twitter. He updated it to Antonio Brown piecing out of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy with his head photoshopped on it. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. I love the NFL. I love this time of year. It's so much fun. All right, let's get into our game picks. First and foremost, why don't you tell our listeners about City Barbecue?
Yeah, guys, if you haven't had City Barbecue, you're doing it wrong. 6 Northeast Ohio locations. Check them out. Great for doing events at work. If you want to treat the office or you just don't want to make food and you want to go home on your way home and get some amazing barbecue, from City Barbecue, 6 Northeast Ohio locations, conveniently located in all the burbs around Cleveland, Ohio. But yeah, check them out. Great food, great fun over at City Barbecue here in Northeast Ohio.
And one more thing, can you tell our listeners about Western Reserve Distillers?
Yeah, guys, if you haven't had Western Reserves, they have their new 6-year and 8-year release that you can get right in Lakewood, or you can go to any of your local Ohio liquor stores and purchase any of their whiskeys along with the Here We Go Brownies whiskey, not in the stores. That is limited edition that you can actually get at the distillery. And of course, they have vodka and all these other wonderful types of liquor that you can get. And by the way, it's all organically sourced. So it's also very naturally made, and you're supporting a local Ohio company at the same time.
There you go. All right, let's make some picks. Last week, Dustin, we tied. So I am 7-2-5. You are 2-7-5. So
I still have a chance to redeem myself. Let's go.
All right, let's get after it. The Chargers at the Texans. Who you got?
Chargers upset on the road.
I actually think I agree with you. Man, CJ's in a slump, big time. I think Chargers' issue is their pass catchers. Justin Herbert this year has to kind of do it all. I think that I might agree with you. Let me look at these other matchups real quick to see if I.
I know we're
you know what?
down
No. I'm gonna play it safe. Give me the Texans at home, but I'm only doing that because of our segment here. But if I actually had to put money on it, I would probably consider the Chargers in this game. Steelers at Ravens. Ravens, yeah. Steelers absolute meltdown to close the season. Broncos at Bills.
Bills.
Look, I agree. I'm taking the Bills in this one, but I could see a world where somehow Broncos bring down the Bills. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't, but I could see it.
You know why I don't have? Again, another team with fool's gold. They lost their last 3 games, and they lost to the backups and the backups of the Chiefs that just folded for them. I think they are on the decline, so I think they're one and done. They're fool's gold.
All right, Packers at Eagles.
Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Eagles here. Same with the Packers. They're on the decline here. They don't. The only shot they have here is if they get Josh Jacobs involved, but I don't think they have the pass catchers to keep up with Philly. But all right, Commanders at Bucks. This is an interesting one.
You know what? And I'm going to sidebar this. This is why I don't believe in Lamar Jackson to make it to a Super Bowl, because Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson are tied for the most playoff wins. And that's a guy that also didn't start for a team at times for over a year and a half. But I digress. Give me the Bucks and another upset on the road. Baker Mayfield balls out, comes out, 42 touchdowns this year. Baker on the road, slamming his fist. Baker wins on the road.
Yeah, give me Baker here. Look, Jaden has had a great rookie season. I think he's probably the front runner.
He's a rookie in the playoffs, right?
That's what I mean. That's my point. I think he's the front runner of offensive rookie of the year, maybe along with Brock Bowers, of course. But this Bucks team has experience. They've got some vets that have been there. I don't think that they make a run that far in the playoffs, but I think they get a win here against the Commanders. And then last but not least, the Vikings at the Rams.
I don't really trust the Rams for some reason. And I'm going to go the Vikings here. I don't know why. I just don't trust the Rams in this situation. Don't.
So I think similarly to the conversation we just had about Baker in this Buccaneers team, I look at this Rams team with Matt Stafford. It's like, okay, they've been there. They know how to win. This is a veteran football team. But there's just, I feel like they're missing something. I think they're a hot team right now, a little underrated, if you will. But I think the Vikings are pissed off enough after that loss.
Yep.
and they have the star power. They've got the defense to stop
Right.
the Rams.
Correct.
So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with the Vikings. So the only difference that we have here is the Texans and the Chargers. So that's
Okay.
what we got to keep our eye out.
That's the
Or
game we gotta
keep
watch.
our
All
eye
right,
out.
here it is.
Yep. All right. All right. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up on a beautiful Wednesday evening?
Yeah, just I have family out in California. Just our thoughts and prayers go out to the wildfires in California and people that are affected by that. It's just devastating. Coach Reddick of the Lakers had to be evacuated even in with his home and stuff like that. So I think 5 or 6 people have perished because of the fire. So it's just sad with those Santa Ana winds. So our thoughts and prayers go out to any of our fans or friends or family that have loved ones in California. We our thoughts and prayers go out to you guys out there.
Most definitely. Most definitely. It's terrible what's going on out there, but as you said, thoughts and prayers to all of those affected. All right. That's all I've got tonight. I'm not feeling my best. So I'm gonna get off of here, but we appreciate
by the way.
everybody for tuning in. Oh, go ahead.
By the way, 48-49, Thunder are up 1 on the Cavaliers with 5 minutes to go before halftime. So your Cavs are in a dogfight. They're playing tough. They're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder neck and neck.
All right, there you go. There you have it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans,